Breaking news.
I have new merch. I've got this new one designed by my good friend Michael Shantz. It says, "Hell yeah, brother."
Hell yeah, brother.
And the Listen to New Metal shirt, as well as all my other designs. And you can check all of those out at the link in the description of this video. Today, what we're going to do is the album art tier list, where we are going to look at some of the very best and a lot of the worst album artwork. I won't lie. A lot of it is going to be the bad artwork because that's more fun, but we'll do some good stuff too. We will ask ourselves, what is the best, and most importantly, what is the worst album art of all time? Let's start with one of my personal favorites, Weathered by Creed. Really advanced stuff here. I found out, by the way, when I was doing the video about them, the person who did all their album art, which is shockingly awful, it legit looks like some sort of like Photoshop tutorial thing that someone would have posted on a forum in like 1999. And it turns out that the person who did all this stuff is actually Mark Tremonti's brother, who they appointed as their creative director. Now, gotta say, Mark Tremonti seems like a great guy. I'm sure his brother is a lovely guy as well. But, maybe appointing him as the band's creative director, with all due respect, maybe that was not the right job for him. Maybe, maybe the merch guy would be a better fit for him. Maybe something like that's a better fit. Either way, one thing we can say about this album art and all their album art is it does exist. Kind of iconic. I like it. It's one of those things where, it's so bad that it's kind of great. Objectively, it's terrible. But I'm going to put it... you know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. It's going on the S tier. Fuck it. I don't care. There's no fucking rules here. Yes, I did go to art school. Yes, I was a graphic designer for 10 years. So my opinion is more valid than yours. If I say it's S tier, it's fucking S tier. Period. End of story. Incredible. Hats off to Mark Tremonti's brother. Best creative director in the world. You go on the S tier in the Design Hall of Fame. Next up. How about this guy here? My War by Black Flag. This is their second album when they started getting weird and metal, doing all kinds of like really strange experimental stuff where they started bringing in the Sabbath riffs and, they made hardcore weird. Seminal album, as they say. Seminal. That's one of those words that the rock journalists use, right? Like if you read Rolling Stone or Spin or something like that, when they write about like hardcore once every 2 years, they're like buzzsaw guitars, machine gun drums, snarling vocals from seminal hardcore punk band Black Flag. I feel like there's a book that every quote unquote rock journalist gets with all these like adjectives in it. I never got that one. I'm just like, yeah, this sounds cool. This is heavy as shit. I like this album. It's fun. Like, hell yes. This album's fucking sick. I have a terrible vocabulary. I didn't get the book of rock journalist cliches. I wish I did, because maybe then it'd be better. Anyway, as most of you know, speaking of brothers, the person who did most of the artwork for Black Flag is named Raymond Pettibone. That's not his real name, but it's Greg Ginn's brother. I would say, actually, one of the reasons why Black Flag is remembered as much as they are, because let's be real, most of their music is not good. And I say this as someone who has been a tremendous Black Flag fan for over 30 years. Most of Black Flag's music is pretty bad. It's just the truth. But their artwork has always been fantastic. And I would say this is one of the strongest album covers of this era. I don't know what it means. Why does he have a kitchen knife in, I guess that's a boxing glove? And there's like an evil puppet. I don't know. I don't know what it means, but it looks creepy and weird. And it's a great cover. Certainly nothing as good as Creed, though. But I will put it on the A tier. Does it hold up as well as Weathered by Creed? I don't think we could say that, but it's a pretty damn good cover. I don't know if it's a puppet. I don't know what the hell it is. A hand. I don't know what it is. Next up, how about In Love and Death by The Used, one of the defining albums of early to mid 2000s mall emo. It's kind of interesting how bad this aesthetic is. Reminds me of this stuff. This aesthetic of like emo art from DeviantArt. All of these sort of like kind of like Edward Scissorhands, Nightmare Before Christmas drawings by teenagers from DeviantArt. Oh, here's another good one. And soon, all of my dreams, they will come true. They have to, yes, when I'm there with you. It's probably some lyrics from some scene band. Here we go. I Must Be Emo. How's the weather? Oh, it's looking up. You can tell they're emo because they're excited that it's raining. And also, they're wearing shirts with skulls and stripes on them. I like that they dated it. This is why it's important to date your artwork. This says here 2005. So we know that this is not some new jack coming along trying to appropriate the shitty scene art aesthetic. This is the real thing. I don't know who started this, but I feel like this album cover must have been kind of influential on that. I actually think it looks like shit. I think this is terrible. Like, it looks like something that a middle schooler drew, and not really in a good way. I suppose you could say that it's iconic, but I don't think it's great. I'm going to put it on the C tier. It's where it belongs. Remember, I went to art school, so my opinion is valid. Yours is not. The end. I win. Iconic does not equal to great. Exactly. So respect to the used. I think this is a fantastic album. But the artwork, maybe not so great. Speaking of not great artwork, oh boy, this is a good one. And Justice for None by Five Finger Death Punch. I legitimately thought that this was like some sort of like fan art parody kind of thing at first. Not just because of the artwork, which is bad enough. It's got the badass gangster skull skeleton guy with brass knuckles and 2 revolvers. In case he doesn't shoot you with the revolver, then he can also punch you with his brass knuckles. Spiked brass knuckles. That is how badass this skeleton is. You know that kiosk at every mall that sells these shirts? The I'm hers, he's mine. And also those ones that say king and queen. That Five Finger Death Punch album art looks like it would be on a shirt that would be sold at one of these kiosks. Not only that, but also this just horrible typography. I mean, this looks like some community college kind of project from somebody who sucked so bad they couldn't get into a real design school, so they went to like, you know, a year and a half of community college for graphic design before they just like dropped out and started making like shitty wedding invitations in Canva for like $25 each. I'm truly baffled at how shitty this is. The guys in Five Finger Death Punch are smart, so like I can't believe that they looked at this and they're like, perfect, chef's kiss, everything about this is great. This is what we want to represent our band. Like, nice work, team. Hats off to the graphics team. You guys crushed it. We're going to take you out to Applebee's. A round of flirtinis for everyone on the graphics team. How did it happen? I don't know. Looks like a bad Game Clan's front page pick. Exactly. I don't know how this happened. I had to look to make sure that this is the real artwork. I assure you that it is. For that reason, I'm going to put it up here with Weathered by Creed. This is how you know graphic design is my passion. I know how to recognize great artwork like this. That's how you know I went to art school, because only someone like me who went to art school could possibly have the sophisticated enough palette to recognize the greatness on display here. Next, how about this one? Transylvanian Hunger by Darkthrone. Now, I have made fun of black metal many times, and I will continue to make fun of black metal many times, but I will say that the aesthetic of these like second wave Scandinavian, Norwegian death metal, or black metal bands rather, legitimately fucking fire, legitimately just so creepy, so iconic. I mean, to this day, how many parody shirts or like sort of references are there to this? How many bands are there still referencing this look and this aesthetic to this day? Hundreds, if not thousands. Iconic, legitimately really cool aesthetic, especially because just for a reference, essentially this stuff was a reaction to the artwork of the era. This is what death metal artwork looked like in the late 80s and early 90s. This like really like elaborate, painstakingly done oil paintings with all this detail and stuff. This is by a guy named Dan Seagrave, who I think is an incredibly talented artist. I love his work. But so much of black metal was about saying like, you know what? Metal has gotten too slick and too refined and too polished. Fuck this. We think everything should be like raw and shitty and nasty, whether that is the recordings or also the artwork. And so that's where this came from. You can see the difference between like just a couple years, like I think this is maybe only a difference of a year or two. The difference between this and this. Like, this feels so shocking and different and unique, right? So as much as I like to dunk on black metal nerds, and I will continue to do so, incredible shit. S tier, still looks great and fresh in 2022. Obviously a little bit played out because so many people have appropriated the aesthetic, but that doesn't take anything away from the original. Yes, that's what Dadaism did as well. I agree. I'm a big fan of Dada. How about Master of Puppets by Metallica, the band from Stranger Things? Oh my god, I love Stranger Things. This album was great. Actually, I don't like Metallica at all. I would say this is definitely an iconic album. The album art doesn't suck, but I feel like this is one of those cases where the significance of the album makes the artwork seem like it's better than it actually is. Like, if this was by some random mediocre generic like German thrash band or whatever, nobody would think that this album was great. I think that we believe that this album artwork is better than it actually is because of how significant the album is. So I don't think it sucks. It's better than The Used. I would put it on the B tier. It doesn't suck, but it's not amazing either. How about, this is a good one. You guys remember that terrible band Anvil from Canada that made that documentary that made them look like a bunch of like weirdos that didn't understand that they were Spinal Tap? Here's their album Legal at Last, featuring an angel smoking weed out of a bong made out of an anvil up in heaven. This is my kind of artwork. These guys don't strike me as the most self-aware people in the world. So I don't think this is a joke. This is something I would do for a joke. Be like, hey, how about let's have an angel smoking out of a bong up in front of the pearly gates? But I'm not so sure that they are doing this ironically. So I'm going to put it on the F tier, even though this is one of these things where it could either go S or F, either way. So arbitrarily, I'm going to put it on the F tier just because we got to have something on the F tier. Yeah, they're not good. Here's another example of a cover that's not great, but because the album is great, like, we sort of want the cover art to be great, but it just isn't. This is Cowboys from Hell by Pantera. I have listened to this album thousands of times. It wasn't until literally like months ago that I even realized what the fuck was happening on the cover, because what it is it's supposed to be like some sepia toned photo of them like raging in like an old west cowboy bar, but because everything is like the same level of there's no contrast, everything is like the same gray level, you can't even tell what the fuck is happening. It kind of looks here like Phil's shoe sort of looks like a hot dog like in front of Rex's mouth or something. You can't tell what's happening. This is like a shockingly bad cover. I am amazed that this album became this successful. It's just the worst. This looks like one of those things where you go on vacation to someplace like Big Bear or whatever, like Tahoe or something, that there'd be some sort of stand there where you can get your picture taken in the, like, with your face photoshopped into like a gold prospector sort of scene from 1849. That's what this reminds me of. Not good. Not good at all. I'm sorry. I love this album. I love Pantera. You guys know that. But the artwork itself, pretty bad. Not as bad as Anvil, but it's pretty bad. I would put it on the D tier. Sorry, Pantera. I know you tried really hard, but it's not good. Oh, how about this one? Now this is what I call an album cover, Metal Magic by Pantera from way back in 1983. What I like about this is that this is what all the new like hype hardcore bands, this is the aesthetic they're going for. All these bands that play like Sound and Fury, all the Bandcamp hardcore bands, this is the aesthetic they're going for, the like crudely drawn sort of shitty metal artwork from 1985 kind of thing. My question, I have two questions actually. Number one, why is he wearing a belt with no pants? Is this like, it feels kinky. You know what I mean? Like, I've heard that if you go to Burning Man, you're allowed to go like naked. As a man, you're allowed to go naked, but if you go bottomless, that apparently that's a faux pas. And I can kind of see why. Like a naked cat, no big deal. But as soon as you put a belt on him, it's weird, isn't it? It gets weird. The second thing is, where is his dong? I mean, you would think it would be right here, right? Like you would want to, I understand maybe his thighs covering it up, but I don't know. I feel like also his spine is in the middle of his, I don't know. There's a lot going on with this artwork. All I'm saying is the belt is weird. I would like to see some cat dong, but you know, aesthetically, at least it's not as bad as Cowboys from Hell. I'll put it on the C tier. It catches your eye, doesn't it? It catches your eye. Could be a trans man cat. That's true. That's true. And they said Pantera wasn't progressive. It's a trans man cat. Pantera was woke this whole time and nobody realized it. That's the facts, my friends. How about this guy? Sunbather by Deaf Heaven. You guys remember back in, when did this come out? 2012, 2013, something like that? All of a sudden, every blog, every like quote unquote tastemaker blog with quote unquote good taste that normally didn't give a shit about metal, like Brooklyn Vegan, Pitchfork, and Rolling Stone, and all these other kind of outlets that normally would look down their nose at metal. For some reason, they all decided that Sunbather was great, and all of a sudden, now it was okay to talk about metal. Do you guys remember that? I do think it's a good album. I agree. Part of that is probably because it looks much more like an indie album than it does a metal album, right? Like this could be by one of those indie pop bands that Pitchfork and whatnot generally fawn over. Animal Collective, absolutely. Could definitely be a Vampire Weekend album cover too. And the guys in the band have short hair. They look like baristas. They saw the album cover and they said, oh, the people in this band look like progressive guys that could work at my local coffee shop that serves $7 lattes with your choice of 7 different nut milks. By the way, he said nut milk. Sir, are you saying you like to drink nut milk? Like, well, yes, I love nut milk. Why? You like to drink nut milk? How many times do you have that conversation as a barista before it stops getting funny? I would never stop laughing at that. I would never stop laughing every time I got some guy to tell me they love drinking nut milk. I would laugh every time. Anyway, legitimately, actually, an iconic album cover. Is it up there with Weathered by Creed? No. Definitely not as good as Five Finger Death Punch, but it's pretty damn good. I'd say it belongs in the A tier. Next up, this one. You guys are going to think I'm trolling here because you know how much shit I talk about nu metal. And you guys know that I think, for the most part, don't understand why people love Limp Bizkit so much. But this album cover, I legitimately think is fucking incredible, and I will tell you why. It is by a guy named Mirror One, a graffiti artist named Mirror One. Of the early 90s graffiti artists, I would say he was the best. The shit he was doing back in the early 90s was incredible. I'm probably not gonna be able to find any of the stuff from the 90s because like it's just not online anywhere, but I'll show you some of his work. By comparison, this is what sort of you know, New York graffiti might look like in the late 80s or early 90s. This is from 2005, but this would be representative of what graffiti in New York looked like back then. By comparison, around the same time, Mirror was doing shit that looked like this. This is not from the 90s, but this is the kind of stuff he was doing in the 90s. Look how much more just like technically interesting and progressive it was. Like this kind of shit. Mirror was the fucking man. Like anybody that was around back then, if you said that Mirror was the best artist out of that whole like group of people back then, I don't think too many people would disagree with you. He did these letters, which I think are legitimately sick. Did this cover, which is obviously iconic. I don't know how they found him, but they got the right person. As far as I'm concerned, this is the definitive nu metal album cover. Never been done better. Shout out to Mirror and everyone else, part of CBS. They changed my life. I'm a huge fan. I hope Mirror got a piece of that. I hope he didn't just get paid $1,000 to do that album cover or something like that, because he deserves it. S tier shit. Okay, here's a doozy. I've been saving this one. This is one of my favorites. We were talking about this earlier in my Discord. This is Dance of Death by Iron Maiden. Truly one of the shittiest album covers of all time. There is so much going on here. I don't even know where to start. For example, we've got the baby in a bikini sort of awkwardly riding on a dog. I don't know what that's all about, but it's here. All these like models awkwardly posing with no hair, awkwardly posing in these like G-strings. I don't know what this is. This is like another toddler wearing a goblin mask or something like that. The fucking brush script font. They've got the dog is stepping on a snake. I mean, there's just a lot going on here. And reminder, you might think that this was from like 1985 or something like that. No, this is from 2003. This is 2 years after the Lord of the Rings movies came out. So before you say, well, you know, they were working with the technology of the time, what could they do? No! Lord of the Rings came out 2 years before this album cover came out. Doja Cat should use this art theme. I agree. Doja Cat could definitely work with this. What I'm baffled by is, like, how did they sign off on this? The band saw it, their manager saw it, the label saw it, everyone involved was like, looks great, nice work, guys, hats off, let's ship it. How did everybody sign off on this? I do not understand. No, it's from 2003. Unironically, trash 3D will become cool again one day. For sure. Someone like Cash Rena or whatever, you know, Dorian Electra or Charlie XCX could use this artwork now and it would be considered like trendy and groundbreaking. You know, again, like Anvil, this is one of those things where it could go on the S tier or the F tier. Either way, I'm going to put it on the F tier, but it could just as well go on the S tier because it is truly iconic. There's a lot going on there. I agree. I'm mostly just baffled at how this happened. That's just so bad, it's bad. Some things are so bad, they're good. That one's just so bad, it's bad. Another iconic yet awful cover, 40 Ounces to Freedom by Sublime. And I'll tell you what this reminds me of. This artwork is the graphic equivalent of one of these jackets, these Baja jackets, aka a drug rug, because everybody who wears one of these things smokes weed. And even if they don't smoke weed, these things come from the factory smelling like weed smoke. This album cover is the graphic equivalent of the drug rug, of the Baja jacket. You can't wear this and not be stoned, even if you don't do drugs at all. If you wear one of those Baja jackets and if you put on this Sublime album, you will be stoned within minutes. Even though there's no marijuana involved, you can't listen to this if you're straight edge. You can't even look. Actually, if you're straight edge, you have to close this video right now. Technically, this is considered a form of marijuana. That's what this image is. How many like horrible tattoos of this exist? That's another thing I want to know. Multiple girls in high school had this as a tramp stamp. I believe it. I mean, how could you get this anywhere else? Like, even if you got this tattooed like on your chest, you would wake up in the morning and the tattoo would have migrated to your lower back as a tramp stamp, because it's just, this is the only way that anybody could possibly get this graphic tattooed on their body is as a tramp stamp. It's just a law of nature. It's physics. It can't be helped. I'll put it here on the B tier with Master of Puppets. Not the worst thing, not the best thing. Makes great tramp stamp tattoo though. Can you get a tramp stamp of Master of Puppets? No, you can't. But you can get a Sublime tramp stamp. That's why it's a great album cover. If the album cover doesn't work as a tramp stamp, how good is it really? And speaking of which, how about the metalcore equivalent of the Sublime tramp stamp, Jane Doe by Converge? What I want to know is, how many Jane Doe tramp stamps exist? The number can't be 0, right? There's got to be some like 40-year-old hardcore mom out there who got a Jane Doe tramp stamp, you know, back when this came out. She got her nautical stars on her shoulders the year before, and then this came out, and she was like, oh my God, this is the best. I love Converge so much. And she got her Jane Doe tramp stamp. It's got to be out there. It's got to be out there somewhere, and I want it. When you think of who has a Jane Doe tattoo, you think of some guy with a beard, balding, wearing a hoodie from his local coffee roastery, or maybe his local brewery, wearing New Balances, maybe putting his kids in the Subaru on the way to daycare. That's what you think of. But what I want you to think of in the future is the Jane Doe tramp stamp. And if you got a Jane Doe tramp stamp, I want to see it. It's got to be out there. Shout out to all my hardcore moms out there with the Jane Doe tramp stamp. With that said, I think we got to give credit where it's due. S tier because it works as a tramp stamp. That's why. Not because it's so iconic and influential, but because great album art works as a tramp stamp. And I would say you can definitely get a Converge tramp stamp if you want one. And if you don't want one, you should. I have a friend with a beard oil business. If he doesn't have a Converge tramp stamp, he's not allowed to have a beard oil business. How about this? So we talked about with Metallica how Master of Puppets is one of those things where it's a great album, and maybe because of that we think the artwork is better than it actually is. And I would say that this one, Dirt by Alice in Chains, is maybe another case of that. Legendary, 10 out of 10 classic album, no question. But the artwork, maybe not so much. Not so much. You can only kind of barely tell what's happening. And most of all, the real crime is you can't see your boobies. What is the point, my friends? What is the point of having a woman on the cover of your album if you can't see her boobies? You've wasted it. You had this girl, this naked girl laying in the mud, taking her picture for the cover of the album, and you covered up her boobies. What the fuck? What the fuck, guys? What the fuck? And most importantly, doesn't work as a tramp stamp. F tier, does not work as a tramp stamp. No boobies. Great album, but the artwork is trash. I'm sorry, guys. Exactly. Bob's or Vagine, take your pick. If you don't pick one, your cover sucks. We talked about The Used earlier. Let's look at another example of that early to mid 2000s deviant art emo aesthetic. This album by Chiodos, I forget the name of it, like Bone something or other. I don't remember. Bone Palace Ballet, that's what it is. Another example of that mid 2000s deviant art aesthetic. This one I would say substantially worse. Like this actually looks like fan art. You guys know that I'm kind of hard on Chiodos, but there's a reason for it. It's because the band is not good. The logo, it's not even a logo. It looks like somebody found some clip art, like your aunt had some book of Victorian clip art or something like that, and they like clipped out the C from it and then like typed out the rest of it in some other font. The logo, the artwork legitimately looks like fan art. It looks like, you know, somebody who won the 6th grade art show did this. And again, how do they sign off on this stuff? That's my question. If you're going to do crappy MySpace deviant art emo artwork, make it crappy. It's sort of the awkward middle ground between not shitty enough to be truly shitty, like the Iron Maiden or Anvil stuff, but not good enough to be good. I mean, I guess it could be worse. I'll put it down here with Cowboys from Hell. Maybe one more. How about this? White Pony by Deftones, or Deft Ones, as I like to call them. I don't hate Deftones. I just think they're a little bit overrated, but I'll give credit where it's due. I think this is a great album cover, maybe a little bit literal. A little bit literal. They're like, hey, we're going to call the next album White Pony. Oh, yeah, dope. Let's put a white pony on the cover. Dude, yeah. Dude, it's called White Pony, and there's like, the cover has a white pony. It's like, they're the same thing. Dude, they're the same thing, bro. It's a white pony. Oh, dude, you're so smart. You have the best fucking ideas, man. But the reason why it's great is because it will work as a tramp stamp. They've got to be out there, my friends. They've got to be out there. How many now, probably 36-year-old new metal moms have a white pony tramp stamp that they got 20 years ago? Before they had their first son? How many are out there? They've got to be out there. They've got to be out there. And for that reason, even though I think Deftones are overrated and conceptually this artwork is kind of crappy and basic, because it works as a tramp stamp, I'll put it on the S tier, because that is ultimately the most important part of what determines good album artwork is, can you get a tramp stamp of it? The answer is absolutely yes. I'm going to get 2 tramp stamps. I'm going to get Jane Doe tramp stamp on one side, White Pony tramp stamp on the other, pull my thong up over my hips so everyone can see my whale tail poking out over my Union Bay relaxed fit jeans. And with that does it for this edition of the album art tier list. I hope everybody enjoyed it.